Thanks everyone for being here. I know you're excited to see David. I've actually never talked to him. Known him for years, never seen him, and got I've got a delay on this. This is something we've never had before. So I'm going to turn down this mic here so we don't have to hear it. It's going to make it interesting to chat though, and I don't know why we're getting it because I have a very high speed connection here. Anyway, as I was saying, it's great to have David here. He's been doing art on this subject as long as I have, maybe even longer. We first met back in the '90s. We were both doing art on the subject. I meant to run the CGI art intro that I usually run starting at 10 minutes before the show tonight, but ran that one by accident. So I think David would have got a kick out of seeing all the CG stuff I've been doing. But um, this week's been just uh-oh. Sorry, David. We ring this bell every time somebody's good enough to help support the channel. Thank you, Adam Good. And welcome back, Adam, too, from the storm and losing internet and power for 3 weeks as you did. I'm glad you made it through all that. Anyway, this week's been a tough one. There's been lots of other stuff going on, so it was really difficult for me to shoot, edit, do about 20 different animation effect shots for the latest episode. And yes, it's me again. I've actually finally had someone complain about that. When are you going to get somebody else on the show? I thought you were going to be interviewing people. And oh, thank you. Just try not to be obnoxious with the bell. Um, the problem is people are reluctant to come forward, and so we're trying to get people to encourage people, or if they know people and they're local, to come here and get in front of camera and tell their stories as they have been doing. So you get to know a lot about me as a result. Um, the one this week is something I remember from about 2008. It was on my birthday. It's something I never forgot. Next week is another one on about my experience, but it's a more recent experience. And I see that a lot of you in chat have been having experiences. I know Anne just talked about losing time because I am getting it from all sides. Stop. So yeah, that's this next week. It keeps throwing me for a loop. I'm so dog tired. It's kind of different because, as you know, the experience is forever changing. The older we get, the more it transforms. So, of course, that show premieres tomorrow at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, the usual time. And, of course, the pre-show live stream is an hour before that. I know I'll see you all there. And it's an interesting show. It really is. Starts off a little on the slow side because I'm talking about how I got out of the field a little bit and things got quiet, and then all of a sudden we came back with a vengeance. Um, let's bring on David. Oh, we just lost David. David disappeared. No, David's not even there. He just disappeared. How odd. I'm hoping he pops back in. There he is. He's popping up. Okay. David, you just had missing time.
Can you hear me?
Can we hear you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, I can see the comments.
Good. And I'm hearing an echo, but is anyone else hearing an echo?
I'm not.
It's coming on my end. It's like there's a lag in yeah. We'll have to live with it. At least it's not the time we had last time. So how are you, David? And thank you for.
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm not doing as much artwork as I used to. I've been fairly inactive in the UFO area for several years now, but it's always an abiding interest of mine, so it's always there.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the lag to stop. This is really it's been a week like this. So I've always wanted to ask you, what got you started doing work like this? Was it because of personal experience or just deep, deep interest?
Deep interest. Going back to yeah, really the Barney and Betty Hill case. Growing up in the 80s, I went to a lecture in 1987. My dad took me to, I think it was Tom Gates of the Mutual UFO Network. They had a slideshow, talked about UFO sightings and different cases, and his conclusion was the Barney and Betty Hill case, in which it indicated that not only are people seeing UFOs, but they're actually interacting with the occupants. Barney and Betty Hill case, in which indicated that not only are people seeing UFOs, but they're actually interacting with the occupants.
I think I got rid of the echo. And I'm still hearing it. It's so confusing. I got rid of the echo. You see, you can hear it coming back. I don't get it. Well, at least you got that out there before this set in. I'm in audio right now, trying to kill this. In audio right now, trying to. I think I got it.
Let's see. Someone asked, is it Chace or Chace with a
George,
C?
thank you so much.
Chace is the spelling.
So I got it right, I can see. I should after all these years. So, oh, geez. See, it's just so weird. So I think I know how to get around this. Oh boy. Anyway, sorry for all the confusion. This has never happened before. I'm not sure what the cause of it is, and it might be just the internet, which is what I'm thinking it is, because there's such a lag. It's like we're talking to each other from Mars. So you've been doing no additional or new artwork lately at all?
Not really. The last kind of alien related thing I did was probably 3 or 4 years ago, which is just like a sketch or something. I've been, I play around with Photoshop but mostly these days I just play Age of Empires 2 and watch YouTube videos. It's got and work. I work in retail, but haven't been active really, and of course I'm always on Facebook with people. I run a couple Facebook groups that are related to alien abduction. So not much involved there except occasionally managing things when people get out of hand and whatnot.
Right. Well, as you know, I've been really busy. Here's putting up some of your artwork. This one really caught my eye. Can you tell us anything about this one?
That one. So there's an Italian artist who did an image of, and I don't know if he was just like coming out of his imagination. I forget his name, but I took his image and I basically just like did a whole bunch of changes to it in Photoshop until I came up with this, which is very much different. But this is kind of when I saw, sometimes what I do is I get a whole bunch of images and I do a slideshow and just like rapidly just watch it really fast on my laptop or my desktop, and then like as some of the images go by, it kind of triggers like, well, I'm in my mind's eye, I'm seeing a slightly different version of that, and then so that's kind of what I did. Is this is how I envisioned it,
right?
And it's basically, I guess it's some sort of ET or maybe a human alien hybrid. But this is one I guess you could say it's from my imagination because it's not based on a specific account or something like that. Whereas most of my artwork is based on actual people's, descriptions and so forth. Like this one that you're
Yes.
showing now is a reptilian. This one's named Renjek. Renjeck is how we spell it. And this is from a case. The guy he's not really public these days, but he had a book or two back in the day that he, from his childhood, he entered into kind of a partnership with this reptilian. And the reptilian was sort of a bounty hunter, worked for a group of Greys, and their whole job was to police Earth environment of other alien groups that would come in and try to do stuff that they weren't supposed to be doing. And so this man and Renjek would work together, kind of doing sting operations and so forth to catch these guys in the act. And then I guess the Greys would get them and put them on trial or something like that. So that was kind of an interesting case, and very different from a lot of other cases. And you never know how literally to take these things, except I know he was telling me the truth as he knew it of what he remembered of his experiences. And, you never know how literally to take these things, except I know he was telling me the truth as he knew it of what he remembered of his experiences.
Yeah, that's very fair. I mean, because you get told some very fantastic things, and that's very fair. And how can they not be fantastic? You get told considering, um, but you have to listen because you can see the look in their eyes. You know that they actually experienced the thing. You know that they're telling you the truth, and I think it's really cruel. I mean, I heard from someone today who was discounted by MUFON again. They have a tendency that they seem to have a "that's too fantastic" limit, as if you could have that on any of this stuff. You're going to get some amazing claims and from very credible people who I think you can trust to be telling the truth based on what they actually experienced. And they seem to cherry pick it a lot. And I've always had that problem with MUFON. I don't know if it's all MUFON people. I'm sure it's not, but I've seen it happen a lot, and it's disheartening.
It's a question of who in MUFON you're talking to, and it's a big.
Now I can't hear you.
A lot of people. It's a question of who in MUFON you're talking to.
Yeah.
It's a big.
Now I can hear you.
A lot of people.
Yeah. I keep trying to find where this echo could be coming from, and I'm not doing a very good job. So why don't you talk about this one? I keep trying to find it. And while you talk about it, I will turn this volume down on my end so I don't hear that echo, and go back into settings and see if I can't fix this.
This is a Mantis. This one, it's sort of a composite. It's based in part on, the main source for it is there's a gentleman, Jeff Westover, did illustrations. He was based in Michigan.
Yeah, very possible. Okay, so
yeah, I won't say exactly where he got the information for it, but this was a case that he shared with me, and so I did my take on it. But I kind of, because with the Mantis types, the problem is like whenever you are drilled down for details, like talking to people about what they remember is like I found no two praying mantis aliens that are exactly alike. They seem to be almost like each one is its own species or something. A lot of commonalities in terms of the they seem to have kind of a light exoskeleton, like a very bony look to them, long neck, huge eyes, but the exact anatomy seems to vary from one case to the next.
I'd have to agree with that. I often thought that now that the echo's fixed, thanks to Mary, I didn't know I had YouTube on, and it automatically comes through on there. And it was one of the windows was up. I shut it down. That's just how tired I am. We're both pretty tired. But yes, I would agree with that. In fact, for a while there, I thought that a lot of people were mistaking, because when you're when you've been taken, you're usually in a sort of an altered state as it is, to a degree, and you can be easily mistake the tall white grays with the wraparound eyes as being a praying mantis type. And I was pretty sure that's what was going on, but then people started saying no, no, they actually look like an insect. They like what you've drawn here. So which is interesting, because how intelligent are the praying mantises here in the insect kingdom on Earth? I've never looked into that much, but is it possible that in some other world they could have evolved to a much higher intelligence? I guess a lot of creatures would be capable of that. We know octopus certainly is, but live
Yeah.
longer.
Well, the octopus is very intelligent. It has
Yes.
the problem that its life cycle prevents it from passing on, any learned knowledge to the next generation, which means each new generation has to begin from scratch again. So they don't have culture like humans do, and they can't transmit, like they can't build up scientific knowledge over time or something like that. But the now on Earth, our insects are limited by their respiratory system and by the nature of their skeleton, that they can only grow to a certain size. If I have a lot of experience in biology, and there's the square cube laws that it's a mathematical rule. As you double the surf, double the there's the surface area and the volume, and but basically it limits the sizes that organisms can get, and it particularly is a problem for insects and arthropods because of the exoskeleton and the limitations of their respiratory and circulatory systems. But whatever these mantis like ETs, they may have some characteristics of Earth's insects, but they're also something very different in order to have the size and intelligence that they have. Now, maybe their ancestors were like one of our insects. It's very hard to know about that.
Yeah, it's what I
The
wonder about.
aliens will tell people things about their ancestry, but I say until we can actually confirm that with our own science, that's just what they tell us. And whether you
That's
can
true.
trust them on that or not, I don't know.
It's true. And someone was asking in comments the other day, don't you ever think to ask them where they're from? And, you know, I talk to Whitley all the time and a lot of other people, and we never seem to ask that question. It's not like you have the opportunity to ask a lot of questions. It seems it's more about what they want to know than what you want to know. So, and again, you go back to Barney and Betty Hill, and there's no point in telling you where I am from the map if you don't know where you are from the map. And that was probably the closest we ever got. For people to run with it and say that they were from Zeta Reticula really wasn't good science, because they never said that. Never, never said it. And in fact, the only reason we even had an understanding that they are in the Zeta Reticulum part of space was because of the actual physical three-dimensional model that the astronomer.
Marjorie Fish.
Yeah, she was amazing, and of course that kind of destroyed her career, typical of science. But she was able to find that the pattern that was in the map, and that was the only thing to the whole Zeta Reticula myth. That the Greys are from Zeta Reticula. Well, I don't think that what Barney and Betty Hill encountered exactly even appeared like Greys. They didn't seem to have the large heads. They had interesting and familiar features, but they weren't. Obviously there's a number of different races out there and down here, and they're not all going to look like Whitley's book cover or my drawings or your drawings, and there's a lot of variety. And I think that with Barney and Betty Hill, that was apparent. So I think their case was very strong. I think there's a lot of credibility to it, and I think the chances of the odds of making a three-dimensional star map and finding that exact pattern in it were 1,000,000,000 to 1. And the fact that she was able to draw it as accurately as she did was really something too. And yet, still to this day, That's considered luck, I guess. Uh, this guy's interesting.
This is a reptilian.
Yeah,
You could
yep,
tell.
yeah.
Typically, the reptilians that abductees and experiencers describe are they're most commonly they're muscular, a very muscular build, height, from like 6 feet to 7 feet. Uh, Often they have like this pronounced bony structure, uh, and pronounced tendons, like particularly the neck area is all these thick tendons, and the bony ridge over the eye and so forth. This was one of the more bony ones. There's some that are more like Earth's lizards, I guess, in terms of, they're not that bony looking, but some of them are very bony. This was from the case Garnett Doonan, a woman I worked with in the early 90s. And it was really the first time I worked closely with someone to try to do drawings and so forth of the beings that they'd seen. And in her experience, these reptilian beings, served as guards on both in an underground base, apparently in the ocean here on Earth, and also on a space colony somewhere out in space. This same species of reptilian was there, and they served as guards.
Wow. It's amazing. We both did so much of this work back during the 90s. It was really a prolific period. Um, did I? That's very interesting what's going on here. Did I ever show you? Did you ever see the? Uh, oh, that's because I'm looking at video clip. We don't want that. Okay, here we go. The reptile that I did.
Yes, I saw there was like a drawing you did, and then you actually made like a three-dimensional one for like a film or something that was
Well, yeah, it was loosely based on that was the
somewhat
movie.
inspired by that anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was the movie called Foo Fighters, which was, it was it was almost a feature length film, and we did it all with consumer cameras and just like zero budget, and I did all the CG for it and stuff. We made a physical reptile creature. But the one that I did was actually based on the one and only experience that I've had, as I browse through, hundreds of drawings here, with a reptile. And I'll never know if it really happened or not. It sure seemed real, and I was fully awake and very conscious of what was going on at the time. But then I woke up from it, the next morning. So it's difficult to know for sure. Where are you, you little? Well, that's another one that's more similar to yours. Um, I meant to have this up, and of course, yeah, didn't. I think I'm in the right section now. So, are you planning to do more artwork on this subject? I mean, you've had a
I
hankering to do
assume
it.
that I'm going to end up doing more at some point, but I can't say there's specifically a plan. Because there were things I wanted to do back, in it like 10 years, 20 years ago that I just never got around to doing, and they're just kind of sitting there waiting for me to be inspired, or waiting for me to meet the right people or something. So there's probably going to be more at some point. But it's like, I take on these people ask me to do things, and it's like, yeah, I'm a procrastinator. I tend to push back, until I really feel inspired.
Yeah, I get that. And here we have another retro. You've done a number of them. In fact, somebody in the comments here was saying that you were a staple uh, on Facebook, and you did a lot of work in the 90s and stuff. So there are a lot of people here that remember your work. And you did a lot of work for you had. Did you have a book? I can't remember. I think you did.
Yeah, it's just a booklet that I did of illustrations that came out in 1995. I mean, it was just like I got a bunch of my drawings and did a 12-page written introduction. I went off to the copy center in Seattle and made like 1,000 copies of it or whatever, and comb bound, and then I started selling them at the MUFON symposium in 1995, and I sold them for a period of several years. But by the early 2000s, you know, I'd gone through a couple of printings, and then eventually just kind of decided, okay, I'm tired of running a business and reporting taxes on it and all that. So I kind of stopped. Uh,
Right.
so, you know, I know there's still people who want copies, but what I can tell you is all the illustrations that were in there are on the internet now. It's just a question of figuring out where they are because they're kind of scattered about, but
Well,
they're all online now.
well, I think people like having a book in their hand still. And in fact, because a lot of people interested in this subject matter are probably, age 45 and up, and mostly up. And so this is the generation that still prefers a book. And I just got one today from Philip Mantle. I'll show in a second, but there's just something about having the book and being able to pull it off the shelf and open it up and have the illustrations and the stories right there in your hand. That's just something that I really appreciate still. I did find that guy I did. That's the very rough drawing I did, and that was right when Vaughn had me do the drawing of it. It's interesting, the thin neck and the bony shoulders, the nails on the hand, but it looked very human, and the scales were so fine that the only way I knew it really even had them was when it put its leg around my leg, which did not have any pants on, and wrapped it around. I could feel its rough skin, and it felt like my pet iguana, very much like. So that was the one that I did.
Yeah, I remember this one.
Yeah,
And
and that
this one is much thinner. You know, it's almost like it's got characteristics of a gray or a
mhm,
human more than like the big muscular reptilians. But it's not the only case of like kind of a thinner sort of reptilian. They're very they do all seem to have like kind of tendons and stuff though, so that they're very, I guess, wiry, you could say, you
yeah.
know, and fairly well defined musculature. I don't know if you remember any muscles or texture on this guy beyond
It
this.
it wasn't wearing any clothes that I remember, and then in the rest of the body was kind of thin, and you could see muscles, but it wasn't. They weren't really pronounced. He wasn't like a weightlifter or anything. So let's see, what have I missed here? He sent me some pictures, so um, that one's very interesting.
Yeah, this was a gentleman I worked with. Must have been late 90s, which, you know, maybe early 2000s. I mean, it was that from the mid 90s to the early 2000s, basically, when I did a lot of this. And so there was a gentleman who was getting these visitations from these small beings. What did he call them? Like little monks, because they would usually be wearing these, I think, like a dark brown hooded robe, and most of the time he wouldn't see their faces, but you know, when he would, they were this kind of like a gray with sort of more cat-like pupils, kind of frail looking, kind of emaciated look, and they would, like, as these little hooded monks beings they would pass through the glass, like the glass door, the sliding glass door at the back of his house, and but then they'd be physical when they were in the house, you know, and
Mhm.
it's like, he described also them materializing, and it sounded like, if you take a vinyl record player, you know, and you scratch the record, you know, it made that kind of sound, you know, when they would materialize. So I remember a few things from that case, and so usually there would be a taller being with them who was like one of the hybrid, more human-like, hybrid-like beings. Resembles sort of the Essassani, you know, like the
Mm.
Bashar type. but sometimes the little beings would come by themselves, and when the tall being was with them, they would be well behaved, but when they would come by themselves, they would treat him more roughly. And he feels like that they were like traveling with the tall being, but then they would do their own thing, like as their own team, and then they were almost like using the taller being to get access to him. So interesting dynamics between the different ET groups that are
Yeah.
interacting with this, and how they kind of take advantage of each other sometimes.
I got to answer George's question about the fire and sky aliens. I think you were asking if the the lizard guy that I drew was that. No, that movie had it all wrong. I'm sorry to say, but the entire abduction scene, well, the on board the craft scene in the film was entirely made up by Hollywood. There was absolutely no truth to it whatsoever. And I highly recommend that you read Travis Walton's book, Fire in the Sky, because the illustrations in that show what he really saw. And this guy back here, let me put this down. This one back here is what what he describes in the book. So, and the problem with it was for Hollywood is that what they told Tracy Torme, the writer, is that if we see one more film with those black-eyed creatures in it, we don't have a picture. And I remember when he said that at MUFON, he was speaking to MUFON. I said, but I raised my hand and said, Tracy, but they didn't have black eyes, which got me in a lot of trouble because they didn't. And, maybe they did have them, and they just, the actual covers, the coverings that go over their eyes that make them look black, like the way we wear sunglasses, they just weren't wearing them that time. And I know that's been done a lot. So I know that people have gotten close enough that they could actually see the eyes behind the black coverings. So, and in some cases, they actually removed them in front of the person. So,
I know that
Mhm.
Travis did say that the the onboard scene in the movie did
Mhm.
convey some of the fear he was feeling during the actual experience, like when he woke up on the table and there were strange beings around him. But
Right.
of course, in the actual experience, they weren't doing anything horrible to him like they were in the movie.
No, and the inside of the craft was beautiful. It was just it wasn't some slimy dripping oozing thing with dead body parts laying around, and that's just what Hollywood does. They have really no respect. The only people so far that I've seen that had respect for this subject matter was Universal when they did Barney and Betty Hill's the UFO incident, which was incredible how accurate to the book that was. I don't know how that happened, but it did. And then of course Spielberg, who treats the subject very well. And that's it. Everybody else, oh, it's just all garbage, and
I,
just get them into the box office.
I feel like Spielberg, maybe he's a closet abductee or something. I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but I feel like he has a respect for the subject. Like, it's almost like he has a knowledge of, maybe
He
he's an
does.
ET soul or something like that. I don't know.
No, he's got a lot of inside information, so we'll just leave it at that. So, yeah, Philip Mantle, he told me he's going to send me his new book, and I'm thinking, paperback, like that, and I get this, and it's amazing. It's so detailed. I believe this is available on Amazon because it got sent to me via Amazon, and it's just so detailed. There's just so much drawings and documents and stuff from Jail and Hynek, and it's an amazing book. Uh, it's just filled with things like that, and I love the artwork on the cover. It's very well done, and Philip Mantle always has been a class act, and we're going to have him on the show pretty soon. So to talk about this, I don't know if you got to see David or the folks here, the show on what was it? It was Netflix. They have a series, and one of the shows was on that case, the Pascagoula, Mississippi case, and it was excellent. But Philip was involved, so that really helped to keep it accurate. So it was really good. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it because it goes into a lot of details that weren't covered in the news media when it was out, um, years ago.
Yeah,
And I
there's a lot
still,
to that case.
oh yeah, there sure
Yeah,
is.
Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker, I believe, Pascagoula in 1973,
Yes.
and yeah, Philip Mantle is like really taken on that case and kind of put out all the but basically there's so much more than just what was reported at the time.
Yeah. Just looking through some of the comments here. Um, I'm going to put up some more art, and if you guys have some questions to ask David, this is a good time to do that. I'm going to put up some more of this amazing art. Oh, were you putting something up there?
Steve, I wanted to ask you, does this show up forward or
I,
backward?
no, it's forward. I can read it.
Okay,
Weird
good.
things.
That's just what I wanted to know because I always wonder with webcams, it's like sometimes like you're mirrored in there.
Well, you can mirror it to yourself, but it doesn't change how people see it on the other end. So
That's good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So as you can
Yeah.
tell,
Well, here I actually wrote down the description with it. So yeah, this is a gentleman I worked with in the 90s. He was, I guess I think it was at Army. And he was working as a security guard at an underground national security agency base. And he remembers there was someone coming through, like it might have been a congressperson or something who was being shown what was going on at the base, and he remembers seeing this small being like what was it, 4 foot tall, with a shiny silver suit, very kind of fetus-like in some respects, huge eyes, um, and he had the understanding that some of these beings that there were beings working with the Soviets and that there were beings working with us. And so why this is going on, and whether these aliens are like working against each other or whether it's one group doing something, messing with both sides, I don't know, but there was apparently interaction between aliens helping us with certain technologies, and then reportedly from what he understood that there were aliens that were also helping other like the Russians, the Soviets at the time.
yeah, I get the feeling that our aliens were better than their aliens. No, I'm just joking. Because the technology we have seems to be so much better, but whatever.
I'd attribute that to our economy and political system.
Yeah,
Although
I'm
it
just
has political system hasn't been great lately, but it was. I
no.
think it's always been better than the Russians.
Well, yeah, but they have some very smart people there, and I think you're right about that. But I'm just thinking about that scene and the right stuff. Our Germans are better than your Germans, so which is evidently we got the better Germans, and in the Russians, well, they didn't get as good. Hard to
We
say.
get the right people and we give them the
Yeah,
right environment, and they can accomplish great things.
yeah. These are this guy over here reminds me of the things that Whitley saw, but the lady is very very interesting.
Yes. Okay. So these are from Garnet Dunan's case in the first. I think she mainly called herself a contactee, but she's also experienced abductee or experiencer would equally describe some of what's happened to her. But she had these beings, particularly the tall female. She called the being Astartlia. I mean, that's the name she was given. The beings, of course, communicated telepathically. Dahomey didn't communicate much. He was just kind of Astartlia's bodyguard or whatever, and he had kind of their very standoffish attitude, I guess. So she didn't really like to interact with him that much. But Astartlia was always very loving and pleasant and motherly, and both Dahomey and Astartlia had like a glow about them, like their bodies would just emanate light. And Astartlia had these beautiful blue irises, and even the pupils had a blue glow to them. Astartlia was like somewhere around 7 feet tall, 6.5 to 7 feet, but she would levitate a few inches above the ground, so which made her seem a little taller. She never actually walked like on the floor. When they would come into the home, what would happen is there would be a kind of a pastel colored swirl of light with little sparkles of light in it, and then the beings would just like float in or walk in as if stepping in from behind a curtain. And this all had to do with some mission that Astartlia wanted Garnet to be on, of going to some mountain in Arizona to activate a spaceship that had been like stored away inside the mountain, which is something that Garnet did eventually do. And I guess she was going to write a book on it. I don't think it ever got published, but she's talked about her experience before in like lectures and so forth.
Wow. You've got Catmaster Trash. David, is your collected drawings from the 90s available? I read about a book called Encyclopedia of Extraterrestrials. I'm not sure the title. It seems you have all your drawings and sketches. Is that it? Oh, let me
I've got here.
I
Yeah, I don't know
have
if
to
you.
drop this down. So hang on.
Yeah, that's the book. So all I did with this one, this was Ronald Story. He commissioned me to do one entry in this book, and basically he had like all the people in ufology. He took statements from them and kind of made it basically an encyclopedia of the state of UFO research as of the year 2000. So I did an entry called the Alien Gallery. I'll see if I can find that, but for that I did Alien Gallery. It's all alphabetical, So I believe it was like 36 different illustrations from different cases throughout history, going back to I think the earliest one was probably 1940s or something like that. But yeah, I did a little written portion and then the 36 drawings. But yeah, that's just some of the work I did. But the one from 1995, again, it's not available as a physical book. It was only ever a comb bound, collection of illustrations anyway. But all the art is available online. So the people who want to see that art, and if you want to print that art, I mean, as the officially the copyright holder of those images, I'm going to say, go ahead and print yourself a copy. But preferably, generally, I let people use my stuff online because there's not much I can do to stop them, unless I wanted to get involved.
I know they use my stuff all the time.
So, but if people want to make a copy for themselves, it's just like if someone's going to put it on a shirt or put it in a book and then start selling it, then I want them to get in touch with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, also, I mean, my book, But Something Is There, and an art book, I put them on Amazon, and I don't really make much money from them at all. In fact, I really don't. I mean, Amazon gets all the money, but at least it's out there and people can get it. And once you send it in, you don't have to do anything else after that. But Daphne, I don't know if you saw Daphne's story which was our very first story we did on Breaking the Silence. She's in the publishing business. She owns a publishing house, and she's going to be publishing a book of my art, an actual book that you'll be able to buy. It's like a coffee table book, and it's going to have all my art in it. And so
I'm going to get that for sure.
But she could do that for you as well. So it's just something to think about. So here we got another one I missed, but in this shows the real muscular body.
Yeah, this is a case. Basically, after I worked with Garnett to do the guard reptilian she saw, the next reptilian case that came along was a gal. She went by the name of Charlie, and this is she recalled this being under hypnosis. Her conscious memory was of sort of a scary thing with a ball of light in the house, but under hypnosis, she remembered the ball of light transforming into this big, I guess he's about 6 feet tall. He wasn't like the tallest, because the really tall ones are like over 7 feet tall, but he's probably around 6 or a little over 6 feet tall. She refers to him as a fleet commander, because on the, like, there's like a group of several craft, and she knows he's the highest ranking being on like this group of several flying saucers or whatever. And might have been triangles, I forget, but that kind of an unusual craft. But in any case, he was very domineering, had kind of very militaristic attitude, and he had this what you call a plastron, I guess, or a turtle shell sort of plate on his chest that was like part of his body. Very thick, pronounced cords or tendons on the neck. The scales were smooth, whereas the one Garnett remembers had bumpy scales. Like this one had like smooth, very snake-like scales, and this one also had these little slits, like between the nostrils and the eyes, which our only guess is maybe it's something like the heat sensing pit in a rattlesnake or something like that. It seemed to be like have some purpose, maybe for some sensory purpose, but we don't really know exactly what it was for. So yeah, that's this character.
Cool. I'm just looking at the comments, and bear with me tonight, everyone. I'm not feeling my best, and so sometimes it's hard.
Someone saying that looks like the reptilian I was in a past life, and certainly that kind of thing has come up. Like I talked to people who remember having past lives as a reptilian or a gray or something like that, but I'd never able to get much useful information out of them as far as like exactly what they remember about that, what that life was like. But yeah, it seems like, maybe we're here involved in getting this information out because we've been those beings in other lifetimes or something like that.
Yes, well, I've been led to believe that by the people that have been taking me since I've been very, very young, as far back as I can remember, that I have. And the interesting thing about that recollection is that what little I have of it, if it's even real, is not something I'd want to go back to. And I think that's possibly the reason that this was done in the first place, and I'm not the only one it's been done to. And we've had a number of people here. When I started talking about not feeling like I belonged here, that I had a different life before when I was very young, and could remember a more sophisticated, technically advanced existence, people started coming out of the woodwork that they'd been holding back, expressing that feeling they had because they thought it was too crazy. There we go again. Something's too crazy, right? In this field. And it's, of course, I've had information given to me that's what is going on. I don't know if I can believe it for sure or not, but it was said to me that the best way to understand a race is to become that race, which is where the phrase we will come from within you. You've heard Whitley talk about that, comes from. I'm not sure if Whitley realized that that might be what they were suggesting, but if it's true that they've reached such a point in evolution, and if they're millions of years old, their civilization, or even hundreds of thousands, that they may have lost touch with feeling and love and emotions that they want back, or they want to experience again. So I really always got the feeling that the one being I'm always dealing with, you'll see all the time in the videos I've been doing, is made herself part of me and somehow is living through me, and experiencing what I'm experiencing here in this life. So the funny thing about it, when I really think about it, honestly, it just seems to make a lot of sense. That doesn't mean it does. It just seems that way to me. It would make, why us? Why would they bother? You hear people say it all the time. If they're trying to get back in touch with something they lost, that they realized at this point in time is extremely important, that could be part of the reason. So
Yeah, my feeling is that there's probably different groups here for different reasons, and some of them are, some of them may have lost touch with their feelings, their emotional aspects, but the others are probably just very well developed in those areas. I remember talking to people who've with some of the beings, some of the reptilians and whatever different beings that they've been interacting with, have felt that these beings have some of the most pure emotions. Like if a being is expressing love or excitement or whatever it is, that it's like, it's a very like intense and pure version of that emotion. So it's like some of them definitely have that emotional capacity, but then some of them may have lost that pretty much entirely, and that would explain one reason for the hybridization stuff that's going on. As far as this idea of feeling like you've come from another civilization that is more technically advanced, from the point when I was a child, when I was like 4 or 5 years old, I remember like being in the kitchen in our house one time, looking at like the different utensils we had and thinking how this isn't how it's supposed to be. Like this stuff is all supposed to work together a lot more. Like it's, it's like it seemed jury rigged. Like it's like just like the stuff we have is just like, like slapped together coming from different companies. But the way I felt it was supposed to be was that it's all supposed to be like designed to all work together in a very coherent way. And I'm just thinking like forks and spoons and the different kind of blenders and the different things you find in the kitchen. That was the feeling I remember having as a child. So it's like, it's not that I remember living another life, but it's like I feel like I remember living another life where the technology is all more advanced. And as we see AI coming, where we're basically externalizing some of our mental functions, like visual imagination, is now we've got computers, type in a description of something and they cough it up as if they're imagining it. And it's like, that's a human mental function that's being externalized to a machine. But I feel like that is stuff that we were always supposed to have, that I feel like I remember another life where we had that, but I don't actually remember that. So that's what I can say about that.
Yeah. Well, my main concern is when I found out we weren't spacefaring, that we weren't able to travel space. And that was in the 50s. And it was devastating to me to realize that we didn't have that capability. And I don't know why a child would feel that way. All the other kids that are around me in school and stuff didn't. It was just me. So I kept quiet about it. But it's also, there's been people that have these experiences that have made it clear that some of us actually have their DNA in us. Now, if that's true, then that's it. Then we do know that there is genetic memory. We know that's a very real thing. So it could be coming from that as well. It's like the implant in my ear. I mean, I was recently told that that was a part of her in me. It was a piece of her biology. The implant itself in my ear that I have, like Whitley's, is actually a piece of her, which is mind-boggling if it's true. Again, I always hold out this little bit of doubt. I have to, as you said, until all the facts are really in. But my gut says that it's true. My gut, my instinct, the voice, the thing in my heart, and it usually never steers me wrong.
Yeah. What I say is that you only need enough certainty to act on the thing when you need to act on it. The rest of the time, it's healthy to keep some doubt.
Well, yeah, absolutely, because you have to, you really do, you do. So, but it's like in the episode I did last week, My Mother's Secret, um, which, by the way, it's amazing how many views we've got on that and all the wonderful comments. Thank you, everyone. Um, my mom and I didn't talk for 18 years. And when we finally did, the first thing she brought up is that she saw me on all those television programs, and she talked about that Whitley guy and some of the other people. And I thought, oh boy, she's going to go off on me, and she didn't. She didn't at all. She said she knew, and then she told me about one of her experiences she had with my grandmother, and what she was describing and how she described it. One about describing it, it's like it eroded away a lot of that percentage that I was holding out on. It just got smaller and smaller and smaller, and it's like, oh, so any chance I had of maybe I was just imagining things, to be kind, just got eroded a great deal, because it did run in my family, but I never heard her talk about it until then. That was just before she passed away. So
My mother actually saw what she described as ball lightning. I mean, that's what she calls it, and I think it was like a big orb of light that was kind of sparking or something, and it was like going along a power line near where she was. I think it was back when she was in college, which would have been like 10 years before I was born. So it's not what probably wasn't my soul coming in, but I've always wondered if like that might have some kind of connection to the UFO thing. I mean, it's like that has to be,
and you're interested in it.
Ambiguous, because I can't say what that really was. I mean, it could have just been an electrical thing going on with the power line that she was walking past, but you never know with these things.
Yeah, I remember vaguely my grandmother telling me about ball lightning, and it came to the house and rolled across the floor. Does it do that? Does it actually roll across the floor? And if ball lightning came into the house, wouldn't it have done a great deal of damage, or not?
Not necessarily, but it's one of those mysteries where they're, mostly we have anecdotal accounts, and like that there's agreement, generally among the people who study lightning and so forth. Yeah, there is this thing, but we don't really know too much about it. So.
Yeah. And of course, it's quite different from the orbs people seen. I mean, that I've seen myself. I remember being told, oh, you just saw a ball of lightning hovering in a field silently, coming close to me. And then as I moved towards it, it moved away from me, and my friends saying, don't go close to that. You don't know what it can do. And it just moves back more. And then it starts to go across the field, and I run after it, and I watch it disappear down in the valley below, because we were up on top of a mountain with their telescopes. And, that clearly was not ball lightning of any kind.
It
But
sounds
it,
like the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, one of those little ships or something like that.
yeah, it was a big orb though. It was, you know, it could hold two or three people.
Yeah,
It was about that size. So
sounds intelligent.
yeah, well then later that night, of course, when we went back to the cabin and stayed in the cabin, which was just, practically was walking distance from where we were, that's when things got hairy. And that's when I was taken out of the cabin and led into the woods, and there was a disc in the woods with the door open, and I went into it. And my friend I was with, who remembered at the time the big sphere, who's a big Saganite and a very, he's with the Planetary Society, and you know how those folks are. Um, he didn't know what to make of what he saw at all. And when we came back the next day, of course, he talked a lot about it in front of my late wife, Jilly. And then 2 weeks later, he didn't remember it at all. He did not remember it. She remembered him telling him, but he says, I don't remember any of that. And I'm still in touch with him today. I do remember that a few weeks later, he started telling me he was having nightmares about this object outside his windows, and a disc or something shining in lights into his room, into the house, and it was terrifying to him. And I thought that was interesting, because my recollection of what happened that night, and a lot of it came out under hypnosis with Yvonne, is that they left him alone, but he must have been privy to some of it because he was describing what some of the events that actually happened that I revealed under hypnosis rather accurately. And that was something, because here's a guy doesn't remember seeing the UFO when we were consciously awake. And then he's telling me he has dreams, and the dreams are talking about something we actually experienced.
Yeah.
So, and I said nothing to him because I just, you don't do that.
I wonder where, you talk about people from the Planetary Society or astronomers or whatever,
Mhm.
where their skepticism on this is actually coming from. If some of them, because they have an interest in space and an interest in all these heady topics about the universe, but like then when they get approached about UFOs, they say, oh, no, that couldn't be. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
But you wonder if like, inside, like they're hiding some memories and it's just like they're afraid to confront it or something.
Well, the funny thing, I've known, being an amateur astronomer, I've known plenty of them in my time, and they would say, Steve, I'm out, under the stars every week with my telescopes, and I've never seen a thing. They spend most of the time looking through an eyepiece at a very, at a certain object. It might be M33, or it could be the Orion Nebula, Crab Nebula, any number of things. And they're focused on that one little thing, and they're not really looking around at the sky. When you go there, you usually have a list of objects you want to look at, and you plan to take and do photography of. And so you don't, sit back in your chair with a pair of binoculars. And I've told them, I said, if you ditch the telescope and just take a pair of binoculars and go out into the same skies and sit there long enough, trust me, you will see things you can't explain. And this has been validated several times to me by going on camping trips with friends who were skeptical about UFOs. And then I don't know if it's because they're attracted to me or not, but every time they went, they would see them. They would point them out to me first. I would be doing something else, and Steve, look at that, So especially these days, it's prolific. Just people, the amount of videos that's being captured. Someone was saying in the comments that how come people who, I think they said that the people that weren't interested, how come people that weren't interested in this subject, uh, didn't see things like that? It was only the people who are. And that is really not true, because most of the videos coming in now are from people just out and about, taking a walk on the beach or taking a hike or just out in their backyard, and they see something they can't explain, but now they got that phone and they're capturing it. And these are people who will right away tell you, I'm not a UFO person. I don't know anything about that, but I got this video. Isn't it amazing? And 90% of them, that's what they are today. And there's some really good ones. and source, but continually those astronomers you're speaking of, they always explain them away.
Hmm.
And mostly as optical illusions. That's the latest thing lately, because they know the swamp gas thing doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. I have issues with videos. I think, well, being someone who manages a Facebook group, well, a
Right.
few of them, I have issues with people. People are too interested in, like, oh, I have to get this, I have to get a video, and I have to get a photograph, and I have to prove it to people, and I have to put it, and if they may, sometimes they come up with, like, here's a nice bit of lens flare, or here's some pareidolia, and it's like they
Yeah.
put it there, and anyone who says this is lens flare or pareidolia, obviously you're dismissing my experience and whatever. And it's like, if you just describe your experience, and you don't have to prove it to me, it's like,
Yeah, I know. And so much of it is lens flares and things, but then again, so many of the videos I've seen lately are they're not any of that. A lot of broad
there,
daylight stuff. You could
there are
see
some
the
of those. I know Melinda Leslie has gotten a few of those genuine ones too.
yeah. Yeah, I haven't talked to her in years.
Yeah.
She's in Hawaii now? Is that where she's
You know, I I don't know if I think she might have visited there. As far as I know, she's still hanging out in Sedona doing the sky
Oh,
tours. But
Sedona, that's right.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I was there in 2016, and I went on a sky tour, actually 2 nights in a row with her, and I saw something that I think was a UFO, but it didn't do anything spectacular while I was watching it. But I think other people saw it, at different points. The Then it was I had a sighting of a UFO power up, where it just flashes. That was 20 2015, which I could talk about this experience. That was, like, I think 2 nights before. 2 nights before I had the invisible apes experience, which was, I don't know if you've heard about that one, but that was, so in basically 2014, 2015, 2016. I believe it was those 3 years that I attended the UFO conference that Starborn Support. It was called Experiencers Speak, and they did it several years in a row during the 2010s. And in 2014, so each year after the conference, we would go out to this lake house in rural Maine, because they were generally holding the conference in Portland, Maine. But Audrey's family, there was a lake house, and so they would have a bunch of experiencers, abductees, choose your term, would go out to the lake house after. And in 2014, there was a sighting of a big power up, just like a light that would flash. It's like a lighthouse beam comes across,
Right.
But the thing is, like, that 2014, like, hours before it showed itself, we had like at least 2 or 3, I think it was at least 3 of our psychics in the group were, like, saying, yeah, it's going to show up tonight, at this point in the sky. And everyone was spot on as to where it was where it eventually appeared. And the sad thing is, like, I was having a hard time staying awake, so I was sitting down on the lakeshore while we were doing a CE5, trying to call something in. But, like, I kept, like, my eyes kept shutting, and I kept dozing off, so I didn't get to actually see it. But I remember hearing everyone in the group go, "Whoa!" when it did its big flash. The following year, though, 2015, I did get to see one that flashed. It was up near the zenith of the sky, and I know because of it was stationary and it was near the zenith, and we're not at the equator, so it's not like a geosynchronous satellite or something. So I figure it was probably a UFO, and it was probably just, like, and I was there. There were other people where Travis Walton was actually there, and several other abductees who are somewhat well known, and but it was just a wink. It was just like a flash. It was just bright enough that I could say for sure I'd seen it, but it wasn't like a really big light, the one in 2015. And I wasn't even sure if, to this day, I'm not even sure if other people in the group saw it, because it was just bright enough for me to say, yeah, that thing just flashed at me or flashed at us. But and then so it was like that was so it was Thursday the 3rd of September, I believe, that year, which was like the two days after this, that we had this whole thing happen. The house is like next to a gully, a wooded gully, and in the gully, Audrey called us out that a tree was coming down. So she called us out onto the deck of the house, and this was like 1:30 p.m. I think and to watch this tree falling. And the tree was like, it was almost as if there was an invisible force like tugging at it or twisting it and trying to knock it down. And so it was like coming down in stages. And then Audrey and her sister Debbie and myself went to like the rim of the gully to like look at the tree as it had come down. And then we're around 2 p.m. now, and we were watching this, and there was like, so the tree's basically lying almost on the ground now, and you could see where the branches would spring up as if something with a fairly substantial weight had been there and had just jumped to a different place. And we were watching this, and I was thinking, oh, this is like that movie, The Predator, keep an eye out for the 3 red dots for its scope or whatever, but I was kind of joking about it, but also wondering like, this is pretty strange. So my theory at the time, I'm trying to come up with a rational explanation, was that maybe there was tension in the branches, and then a branch would snap, we wouldn't see it, and then other branches would spring up. But then later that same afternoon, I went down there with Lee and Raquel to watch what this was close up. So as I'm walking down into the gully, Lee and Raquel are sitting there right in front of the treetop, which looks like a cluster of bushes now because it's lying on the ground. And then I see, right as I'm just a few feet away from where they're sitting there and where the treetop is, I see like something move like in there, and it's so they've just been watching an animal in here this whole time. So I'm looking, okay, so where's the animal? And I'm looking, and that is there a raccoon in there? Because that was big, like a raccoon. I'm not seeing a raccoon. Okay, maybe it was a squirrel, maybe it was a bird, and I keep thinking of smaller and smaller animals. Why am I not seeing the animal? And then it moves again, and I realize, okay, so I'm seeing a movement. I know this is being caused by an animal that's in front of me in the plants. I know that if there was an animal causing this, that I could see the animal. And I also knew simultaneously that I can't see the animal that's causing this movement. So it was invisible, and it was perfectly invisible. I was looking for, like in that movie, The Predator, you could see the silhouette and you could see the shimmer and the shadow and whatever. And you can't see any of that. It's just like, there's movement. Obviously, it has physical weight because you can see where it jumps from one place to another. It has physical strength because you can see where it's deliberately shaking the branches, like to get our attention. But you also can't see it, and there's no odor and no sound. But the movements we saw were exactly what you would see if there was monkeys or chimpanzees climbing in a tree, but then someone went through and digitally removed them from the footage afterwards.
Right. Yeah, you can't do that with human eyes.
To this day, that was the most paranormal experience I've had, and it was just pretty exciting, but
wow.
Still at the same time, basically my feelings were like, thank you, like gratitude, because I've been studying this UFO and paranormal stuff for years, and I'd never had anything myself, and then finally to have something as sort of confirmation was great for me.
That's terrific. Let's see. What am I looking for here? Oh, yes. I don't know if this works. This is the link you sent me. Can people click on that?
It should. Gosh, it did a redirect thing.
Yeah, that's the link you sent me, and that's what it turned into.
Yeah, it's like I sent a link, but then when you click, it turns into something else. So
does it? Okay.
Part of that sequence of letters is probably actually the URL for the video.
I thought it was for your Facebook page, so
yeah.
I wanted to share that before we go here. so people could join you there if they want to. Because some of them really expressed an interest in getting hold of some of your art, and that would be one way to do it. So, David is on Facebook. Um, you could actually type it in, I guess, into chat.
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on Facebook. It's what is it, David? Actually, let me pull up my thing and see what the URL is. Okay, David Chace. Yeah, it should be just facebook.com/David W. Chace. And remember, Chace is Chace. So you should be able to find me there. And I don't add everyone as friends, but you can, if you go to my photos, then go to my albums, and then under albums, go to artwork, and then you can find pretty much all my alien art stuff in there.
Cool.
So yeah.
Well, great, David. Well, it's great to meet you sort of face to face for the first time since 1994
Yeah, I
or
mean, we
somewhere in
did
there.
speak on the phone briefly once
Yeah,
in
it's
like
been like
mid
30
'90s,
years.
but yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, it has. And we're both still here. So
I'm
Hi.
Mary.
that's Mary. So we're going to close the show. We're both holding ourselves up. We're both really exhausted, and we just been working really hard. But the funny thing about it though is that we go to bed at like 9 o'clock, and we get up at 5, and that's a good 8 hours, and we'll allegedly get that 8 hours, and then wake up feeling trashed and tired, and Mary's been getting that somewhat lately. I've been getting it all my life, and I'm pretty sure I know what it's from. But as what happened the other night, it was last Saturday evening, and of course we had a support group meeting the next day, and I was just floored. And I'm so good at remembering my dreams, and I couldn't remember anything, and that's a clue right there. The fact that I couldn't remember anything, but I totally felt that something had happened. And then I remember talking to Daphne, and she said that I should meditate on it. Mary and I both do meditation, yoga, and I did that Monday morning, and I did get some stuff, and so that's going into next week's show, which I'm working on now. So it's been an exhausting week. So I was so glad to have you on. Thank you so much, David, to see your smiling face and talk about your artwork and chat about this wonderful subject matter. And it is wonderful. I mean,
It
I know
is.
some people don't think it's wonderful because for whatever reason they haven't come to terms with it.
Don't be afraid of it.
No, don't be afraid, period, of anything. It's if you can. I know it's hard. So, and we'll see everyone tomorrow night at the premiere and the live stream before that. And yeah, like I said, it's an interesting show. Oh, you're welcome, Steel Swarm. Oh, I don't recognize you. I think you're new, but then again, I'm tired. But thank you, Steel Swarm. I really appreciate
I'm seeing the
everyone.
comments, and thank you everyone for the kind words.
Yeah. All right, David. We'll see you guys tomorrow. And thanks again. Good night.